The expectation just wasn't met.
Mm.
And you just see it with different eyes, with your gratitude eyes. And I think so often in life, it's really how we look at things.
Gratitude practices, such as reflecting on positive events before bed, has been linked to better sleep quality overall.
Welcome to Lulubug's podcast for parents, where we empower you with the tools to help children become confident, resilient, and ready for life's adventures. Hosted by creator of Lulubug's Garden, Jil Hunter, and child psychiatrist, Dr. Karen Menotis.
Welcome to the next episode of Lulubug's podcast for parents. Today we're talking about gratitude, and it's one of my favorite topics to talk about. It's such a beautiful feeling, beautiful practice to bring into your daily life.
I'm so excited to talk about it, especially because there's so many shown benefits, short-term and long-term, for kids when we start instilling some of these practices for young children that they can develop over time as a normal practice for them. So such a great topic to talk about for parents to learn about, to be starting to work on with their young kids.
And also, you can watch our Lulubug's Garden episode that talks about gratitude. It's a beautiful episode, and it's actually one of my favorites.
Hopefully you can learn a little bit more in depth today with us about how to continue this work at home.
Yes, how to apply it in your daily life and how beneficial it is for you and your children. So I cannot wait to hear from you, Dr. Karen, today. What actually is behind gratitude? Like, what happens in your brain?
Perfect. Yeah, let's jump in. I think we can all relate as parents and even, just around kids in general, where we're, every time we're reminding them, okay, what do you say? Every time they get something, or every time, grandma gives them their birthday present and they run to open it. But before we stop them and we're, constantly reminding them to be grateful.
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing to do for kids. And I also think it's important that we start to, as parents and as caregivers, that we understand the difference between manners and true gratitude.
Okay, I actually love that you're pointing that out because even in my own life, I mean, I just realized there are those things you do because someone tells you to do it, or there's something, when you really truly want to do it because your heart feels that way.
Mm-hmm. In fact, the age range of 3 to 4, actually, their brains cannot really have true gratitude yet. Like, they do not have the capacity.
Tell us about that. Like, why?
So, developmentally, they are in what we call pre-operational stage in life. And what that means, part of that developmental phase includes something called egocentrism. That doesn't mean they're selfish. It doesn't mean they're bad. It just means that they are in a phase where their brain, like, they are the center of their world. However, it does make it hard to try to really teach true gratefulness that requires us to be able to understand what someone else did for us, that all the invisible steps that took for, let's say, for grandma to buy that toy car at the store, right? They don't have something called theory of mind yet, which is the ability to see things from someone else's perspective and to really understand what someone else is feeling, the invisible things behind a physical gift or a kind act. And so because of that, we can't expect them to have true gratitude at that age, but we can start laying the foundation for them. So then at age 4 to 5 is really where that perspective, understanding, and theory of mind can actually start. And it starts very slowly. But really, age 7 is where it really lands for kids. And they start to what we call decenter from themselves, right? So they start to realize, oh, the world is really not all about me, and that things I do impact other people, and what other people do impact me, vice versa. And so from age 7 onward, it continues to mature.
I didn't know everything I know now with child number 1.
Mm-hmm.
And there are lots of learning moments for the parent raising children themselves. It's like, yes, you don't attend a university on childhood education or anything, but you are learning with your children.
Oh, it's the
And
most
you're changing too.
valuable
Yes.
type of learning.
Yeah. And you're changing yourself. And I know, for example, with my first kid to my last kid, I definitely have developed like an intentional gratitude seeking
Mm-hmm.
and practice in daily life. And as your gratitude for things changes, like, and seeing it more in little things around you,
Mhm.
like the gratitude for the beautiful flower or for the windy day or little things even in your life. And it wasn't like it's a practice. Like it
Mhm.
almost seemed that muscle just became stronger and stronger and stronger while you're
Mhm.
practicing. But also by just modeling or mentioning it to your children, even the younger ones, they are hearing you
Mm.
and they are noticing your gratefulness for things or your neighbor doing something nice for you or just saying it out loud to the children does seem to be at least heard by them. Maybe they
Mhm.
can't quite practice it themselves yet at the young age, but they are seeing it around them.
Yes, 100%. And so that's in fact at this age, even as young as 3 and 4, what laying the foundation looks like is us as parents, us as, even family members, siblings, older siblings, really narrating that for them, right? Our own internal experience, the invisible things that they can't maybe think of on their own, pointing that out loud, not in a way that's talking at them because, like, I think sometimes we have a tendency when we perceive our kids as ungrateful in the moment, saying, well, don't you see the effort that it took to get this? Like, we really don't want to approach it in a way that adds shame or that adds guilt to the child, because what that ends up doing is, right, they start to associate gratitude with being punished, right? Like a punishment. If they're in front of family members, try your best not to say things like, okay, what do you say to Aunt Caroline for the gift now, right in front of everybody when there's a lot of pressure? And in fact, instead, you can jump in for the child instead and say, I can see Johnny is so excited. I can see it in his eyes. He's just, a little bit overwhelmed right now. And I'm sure he appreciates all the love that went into this, and take sort of the pressure off of them to have to answer. But instead, going back to what you were saying about narrating it, saying it in a way that's just truly genuine, that you've observed, and just narrate your experience in everyday moments out loud that you're grateful for,
Yeah.
and making that sort of just normal practice in your home. And that can be so impactful.
Yeah, I actually can totally relate to that situation. Remembering it was one of my kids' birthdays. He was
Mhm.
quite young, and they received so many presents. It's almost overstimulating for them. They don't even know which one of them they all like. They even just love ripping open the
Yes.
wrapping paper.
Yes.
But they literally sometimes just look at it for 1 second and throw it behind them and opening the next one. But I remember this one particular gift from someone where I didn't even think they knew us as well as the present showed that they knew us.
Mhm.
And just truly, yes, it was for this child in that moment, just another quick, oh, I opened it quickly, didn't even say thank you, opened the next one. But truly, from the bottom of my heart, feeling that was a very thoughtful present and really turning to the giver and expressing that feeling to them because my child in that moment couldn't. That
Right.
wasn't the right moment for him. But then weeks later, that was one of his favorite presents. I mean, for a long time, actually, because
Mhm.
it was so thought through of exactly what my child likes.
Mhm.
And he just couldn't express it in that moment.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think that it was just so fun to open all these presents, and there was so much energy in the room and
Mhm.
playtime, lots of kids. And yes, he was obviously excited about it because he played for it for a very long time.
Mhm.
Um, but he just, in that moment, there were just different stimulants.
Yeah, a mountain of gifts is overload for kids.
Yeah.
And that's why oftentimes, for example, like an event like Christmas or birthdays where
Hmm.
kids may get more than, one or two gifts, I always say it's really nice if there's a way for you to sort of bring out a gift one by one
Hmm.
and allow them to uh, really appreciate the moment of opening a gift, of um, looking at it, of opening the box, and then you as a caregiver with them say something like all the invisible steps that it took for that gift to get into their hands. So, for example, let's say grandma gives them a present. She got in her car, she drove to the store, she used her hands to pick out something just for
Oh,
you, and the gift is a little clue that she was thinking about you in that moment, right?
Yes.
And that's not something that young children are even able to do.
Actually, I have goosebumps again. I get
Yes.
those often with the show. But just the love that can be felt behind a gift.
Mhm.
Because there were thoughts, they were thinking about you. They were, just like you say, they were going through all these steps to show you that they love you. And I know it's in a material object,
Mhm.
but it's really a feeling that's behind it.
Exactly. And it's again because you're not overloading their system with that excitement and that overstimulation where they can truly focus on what's in front of them. And that's a really good time as you have that attention from the child, right? That
Mm-hmm.
front part of the brain is clear, they can focus because they're not so stimulated from everything going on around them and all of the other gifts that they might be getting, that they can receive the information you're giving them.
That is so interesting because I love to hear this explained why it is from you now. This every year happens in our family a little bit, and it's Christmas time because Christmas time has been magical and so special for me since I'm a little kid. I love everything about it. I love the lights, the candles, like all these little details in Christmas. I really love. So the idea once we started having kids, and first it was one, then two, three, and then seven kids, that's a lot of presents. And it was taken away when there were too many gifts from me how special I felt about Christmas. And really soon, early on, we really started a tradition where just one person opens one gift and everybody watches, then the next person, and really everybody just receives two gifts. But because there's seven, it really does seem like we're opening tons of presents. But really, at the end, really everybody just has two gifts. And it turned into keeping, for me at least, this everybody does it different, and you need to do how it works for you. But I could see that there was more that feeling of Christmas that stayed intact instead of the overload and the
Yes.
stimulation of these gifts. And because now we do also the kids give each other one gift too, but there's more thought behind it because like this is their little special gift that day. And they're very often very thoughtful gifts. So
Exactly.
thank you for explaining it,
Of
what it does. And
course. And that's just so beautiful that you came to that conclusion and that your family was able to sort of create this tradition. And I think that, first of all, in general, I think,
Mhm.
especially when your kids are grown, it's like, okay, the gift giving is fun and thoughtful gifts are special, but most of the time we can buy our own things. And so really being able to enjoy the time. But for young kids, it is part of the magic.
It's magical, yes.
And so we don't want to take that away, but we really want to make sure that we can allow them to appreciate it, right? In a
Mhm.
way that might be hard, not because they don't appreciate it if they get more gifts, but their brains just can't handle being able to focus on so many different things, and especially with all that excitement. And so a lot of times they like toss it aside and ask, okay, what else do I get now?
Yeah.
And let me open the next one. And they don't even,
Or they open
they,
the last one and they're like, why aren't there more? Where are they?
Right.
Yes.
Or they haven't even opened it. It's like halfway open. I'm like, did you even see what's in there?
Yes.
Right. And so they're hooked on the anticipation, not necessarily even the object.
Yeah. How does that happen? Like, what is actually happening in the brain?
Well, so what's happening is the dopamine. So dopamine is the neurochemical in your brain that is involved in anticipation, excitement, reward, motivation. And so when kids are just like they see this mountain of gifts, they're just like, dopamine hit, dopamine hit, dopamine hit, and it's sort of like accumulating one on the other. And so that kind of drives them to keep seeking that in the next gift, right? In a very sort of basic explanation way. It's very normal and very natural for that response. It does not mean that the child's ungrateful. It does not mean that the child is selfish or not appreciative.
And it
And so,
seems to, depending on the temperament of the child itself, that the reactions can be different.
yes.
Some that they may almost freeze in these situations and it's overwhelming to them.
Yes, or shut down
Or
or
shut
just
down,
feel so
yes.
overwhelmed. Absolutely. Then sometimes what can happen, and I think again, it looks very different than what And so understanding kind of what's going on can be helpful. But um, let's say your child is really wanting this one gift, right? I don't know. It's like robot. Just gonna make something up. This like really special robot that they've wanted, and maybe they are gonna get it, right? But they don't know it yet. And they open up this gift and it's a toy car. And they just sort of like
Sorry, somehow Toy Story is one of my very favorite movies. So I'm just like, I remember Andy just opened his presents and it's a puzzle. Like, yes.
exactly.
And then Buzz
And
Lightyear
then they
appears.
just like throw it across the room. Like,
Yeah.
what is this? And you're almost like your heart just sinks. You're like, I was so excited to give you this, right?
Yes.
And they don't love it. And that is not necessarily them not appreciating it or not being thankful, right? It would have been different maybe if you just gave them that puzzle or that toy car at a different time when
Yeah.
they weren't expecting or they weren't hoping for something different. And what happens is again that dopamine is building, building, building in anticipation for something that they're so excited they think they're going to get. They wrote Santa that thing on the top of their list. And then they open it up and it's a puzzle. And then all of a sudden that dopamine just plummets and their affect just sort of sinks. That's part of disappointment and part of that expectation not meeting the outcome that they're getting necessarily. Is it okay for them to throw that box of puzzle across the room? Absolutely not, right? But that moment right there is not the right time to communicate that with them. They are just experiencing a full sort of depletion of dopamine in that moment. And so in that moment, supporting them, connecting with them, narrating, hey, you really wanted that robot. And I can see why you're disappointed that you opened it up and it wasn't the robot. Well, it's not even necessarily that it's a puzzle. Maybe they love puzzles. And I understand why you're so disappointed.
Yeah, that's actually so interesting because very often I think, not always, but like it actually just because that was the expectation was this big robot, let's say, but they do often actually love the puzzle. And like weeks later, you actually see them play with a puzzle all the time.
Right.
And that disappointment actually does not match how much they actually do like it. The expectation just wasn't met.
Mm.
And I know in this episode, there's a moment where Lulubug says, you just see it with different eyes, with your gratitude eyes. And I think so often in life, it's really how we look at things. And in that moment, we just only were looking for the robot. We couldn't, and children, like you taught us, can't really look for these other things maybe in that moment, especially when they're very young. But the practice of really looking for the good and the gratitude in things and the positive in things. And I think even maybe later on, weeks later, when they are playing with the puzzle, pointing out how beautiful this puzzle is, and how nice that was that somebody gave us that puzzle, and not even shaming, blaming, nothing, but just pointing out, oh, this is beautiful, isn't it?
Exactly. And again, going back to pointing out all of the steps and all of the love and care that went into that gift before the gift even became theirs.
Yeah. Thank you, Karen. What moments are good to teach in hidden ways, maybe even your children gratitude?
So every single day, right? Modeling is where we want to start in our everyday moments where even though maybe your 3, 4, 5-year-old isn't quite there yet, um, us out loud, just in our everyday moments, saying things like, wow, look at the sun on the floor. I've got this warm, cozy feeling in my chest just sitting here with you. We're so lucky to have this quiet moment together, right? Things in our everyday, being able to say that out loud and it's even hard for me, right? In my everyday when we're so busy going from one thing to the next to stop and smell the flowers, right? But
I've been hosting a mindfulness class at my house quite frequently, actually, over the last 4 years. And that moment of like that staying in the present moment, using your senses, kind of like Sterling in the show when they're telling him, Sterling, like, where do you feel the warmth right now? And he feels it on his shell. And then realize how the shell that he doesn't pay attention usually that much, but in that moment when he's actually focusing on the shell a little more, how thankful and grateful he is for his shell. It's his home, it's his security, his safety. It's a part of him. And I love that as he's pointing it out, because it seems it's something that even for you listening, the adults, it's such a beautiful, powerful practice in daily life.
And I think even we're talking about gratitude right now, but really in every emotion, like we go back, as we're talking to, we go back to our five senses. We go back to the feeling of breath coming in and out of our lungs. We talk a lot about temperature changes, sensory temperature changes to regulate emotions. Our senses and our connection with the present moment and nature can be so regulating, and we can be so thankful for that, right? We can be so thankful for the shade that a tree is giving us when we've been walking in the hot sun for, 2 blocks, right? And just stopping in that shade and pointing it out loud to your child and saying, wow, I was really hot walking. I'm so thankful for this beautiful tree that took so long to grow just to give us some shade and oxygen to breathe.
Yeah.
And then move on, right? It doesn't have to be like a lecture. It's just an observation out loud. And that is really growing such important pathways in your child's brain, but it's also growing them in your own brain and bringing that moment of light and gratitude to yourself.
Somehow our brains have a tendency to quickly notice the negative sometimes. And really, that it's more an intentional practice to actually also find the positive and truly notice the positive in those moments as well.
It takes a lot of effort for adults and it doesn't come natural. And so being really intentional and proactive in the morning, waking up and saying, okay, I'm going to slow down. I'm going to notice 2 things today that I'm thankful for. I'm going to say them out loud to my child. And in moments that, your child seems ungrateful, especially when there's people around, you want to avoid correcting them in that moment, right? The right time is really in those quiet moments when maybe at the end of the day at bedtime, you can have that conversation and ask 3 questions in order that will really help them start laying the foundation. Again, we are just priming them right now to start understanding the basic concepts that in the next couple of years, they're going to really be developing pretty solidly. So it's notice, think, and feel.
Okay.
Notice, what did you get today from Uncle Mike? Or what did your friend at school do for you in the playground before I picked you up?
And in those moments, probably even referring to senses too. Like, how did it smell like? What did you hear? Like, did you notice the bird singing? Or, like, oh, that was such a beautiful. Do you remember on the way home when we were walking home, how beautiful that flower was? And just kind of remind them back through the whole day. It's such a nice thing to do at nighttime, to just kind of back up through the entire day and noticing the beautiful things that have happened.
So that's notice. That's great. So we're kind of having them, and it's hard especially with the younger kids. Their memory isn't always the best. They're like, I don't know.
Even if it's just one thing, like it
Yes.
doesn't even have to be this long. It can be this 1 minute long.
Right.
And if they just say one thing, oh yeah, that was so fun. Or yeah,
And if
that
they
was
can't come up
wonderful.
with something, help
That's
them.
okay. Yes.
Right. You can
Or share
sort of
something you saw or you noticed.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then the think part. Well, why do you think that Uncle Mike picked that one specifically for you? Or why do you think that your friend at school helped pick up your backpack when the books were falling out? Or why do you think, I don't know, why do you think the birds were chirping today?
Yeah.
Right? And then lastly is feel.
Okay.
Helping them connect the things they noticed, some of the like logic behind, okay, why maybe people did something kind for them or bought them thought of them in a specific moment or something beautiful happened in that day, to the feeling that it brings to them inside, right? So the emotional, the whatever feeling it may induce in them, and allow them to express that. So how does your chest feel knowing that he wanted to make you smile, right? That's so simple, but it's so important to point out.
And it is that warm feeling in your heart.
Yes, like this little person was so important to somebody somewhere in that moment of the day. And even though, our kids are the most important thing to us every day, they don't always feel like that. They don't always
Yeah.
know that. We don't say it out loud all the time. And so something concrete that you can point out to them at that moment to help them link all of those three things, the notice,
Yeah.
feel, or the notice, think, and feel, can be so powerful when
Yeah.
it's those quiet moments and
And
not.
give them all the time they need to slowly develop this and let
Mhm.
that muscle grow. I feel like the forcing or making it become a manner
Mhm.
instead of a true feeling that comes from inside, it just
Mhm.
takes a little time.
Yes.
But to keep practicing, I sometimes think of it's like making a muscle stronger at a gym with some weights or something. It takes a little time, and you need to just consistently do it, and over time it will develop and become really strong.
Your brain is a muscle, and the gratitude pathways, right? They're not developed overnight. They need priming, they need reinforcing, and then they are built over and over and over time of practicing these until they can start sort of automatically noticing things on their own and noticing the connection of the act with the feeling. I think there are the obvious, short-term benefits when
Mhm.
you're doing this with your children, right? Getting them off of the what's next treadmill and helping them enjoy what's in front of them in that
Mhm.
moment, pointing things out to them. But also short term grows, we talked about priming the brain for gratitude, but it really grows something else, which is the empathy muscle. That invisible effort is perspective taking, the base of everything social, right? It pulls them towards people. So, not just things. So, they want to give back. It creates we call pro social behaviors, which include helping, kindness, compassion.
Mhm.
These are sort of the things that we've a little bit talked about today,
Mhm.
but even long term, the evidence has shown quite a bit of promise in several areas for people who regularly practice gratitude. First off, it's been shown to improve well being and positive emotions in general. Children and adolescents who report higher gratitude tend to report greater life satisfaction, happiness, optimism, and just like positive moods overall. Be very clear, has not been shown to prevent depression, anxiety,
Mhm.
but there has been shown that children and adolescents who have a higher sense of gratitude have had lower reports of depression,
Mhm.
anxiety. So it can help
Mhm.
reduce some of the risk there as well. So not necessarily correlated to
Yeah.
prevent it again, but can be protective. That pro-social piece, right? So why is that important? It really helps kids learn, like strengthen their relationships with other people, their family, their peers. They can recognize kindness in other people, which is associated with stronger peer relationships, again, greater empathy, and those behaviors that are so important in building and maintaining relationships,
Mhm.
like helping each other and caring and sharing and cooperating. So, all of that has been shown long term to be higher in kids who report a higher sense of gratitude in general. And then one thing that I was actually going to mention when we talked about saving that nighttime, bedtime to have some
Mhm.
of these conversations to reflect on um, gratitude for that day is that it has actually been shown that practicing gratitude in those moments
Mhm.
can improve sleep for children.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So, specifically in older children and teens, gratitude practices such as reflecting on positive events before bed has been linked to better sleep quality overall. Sleep is such an important anchor for humans, not just kids, but
Yeah.
for kids especially, right? And teens who it can help, improve their moods, regulation, attention, learning. It
That's
is
probably
really, really
another
sort.
entire podcast we should have one day about sleep. Because I
Yes.
actually did just read a book on this information on sleep, and especially in children, and it's so interesting.
Yes.
So one
So
day
important.
we will have a podcast on this as well.
So, again, another good reason for trying to practice noticing, thinking about,
Mhm.
and connecting the feeling that kindness in others and also just our beautiful moments of the day and doing that, in a quiet time, maybe even before bed, can bring as a benefit.
I love this. So, Karen, just at the end of this episode, I always like when you recap it actually one more time, just in few words, about maybe what gratitude is, why practice it, and to encourage, I guess, everyone to please practice it.
Yes, of course. So let's just quickly summarize
Yeah.
for our parents listening. Even though our 3, 4-year-olds right now really don't have the full ability to have that true meaning of gratitude
Mm-hmm.
based on their developmental phase where they are right now, it's never too soon to start the conversation, right? Modeling it in our everyday lives as parents, the small moments, the big moments, out loud, what you're noticing,
Mm-hmm.
what is behind, what the invisible pieces that it took before the child has seen the gift or the kind act, and then how that potentially makes them feel, as well as narrating it for ourselves is never too early. By the time that they're 7, this theory of mind or their ability to start really feeling true gratitude is starting to really, really solidify. And so, really, this is a critical time to start that foundation with your children. There are so many benefits to starting this early and just making this a practice in our everyday lives with our children, from better sleep quality to better relationships to overall higher sense of well-being and contentment over time, and even potentially helping avoid depression, anxiety in some kids and some adolescents and adults down the line. So I can't speak enough to all of the benefits and reasons that starting grateful practices to strengthen these neural pathways for gratitude is so important in young children. Kids who feel, the warmth of someone's effort instead of just getting marched through a script of how they need to say thank you or be grateful in the moment when they have so many eyes on them, those are the ones that can grow into content adults and grateful adults who can connect the feeling with the invisible acts that it took for somebody to do something kind for them. They can feel more steady in their relationships, happy from the inside out, and not just from the next thing that is coming.
And this being an episode on gratitude, I actually would love to take the moment to share a little bit this gratitude I've been having to have this vision of this little kid show that it's been made alive, that this vision is now out there and it's living out there. And I want to thank my husband who believed in me and that we can do this show and helped me put a team together. I want to thank Brigham Taylor mostly for making this storytelling magical out there, for loving this show so much, for putting his heart and soul into the creation of the show. I want to thank you, especially for being part of the show, because you are just exactly what we needed. The parents want to listen to you and give us all your knowledge you have. I want to also thank the Huntsman Mental Health Foundation for making that mental health moment at every end of each episode happen and sponsoring it, supporting it. I just really am just so thankful for this show and for you, Karen.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Thank you, Jill. And I truly am so grateful for our paths crossing, but also for just having this opportunity to be a part of something so beautiful and has allowed me to help kids more than on a one-to-one basis.
Yes. And thank you all so much for tuning in, watching us, following the Lulubug's Garden Show, subscribing and liking it, and also for being our guest on our podcast and listening to us. And thank you.